Hi, this is James Gardner, the CineTechGeek, and today I've got a special video. I'm going to do more on high dynamic range. And the first thing I'm going to open with is high dynamic range, the elephant in the cinema. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, high dynamic range has mainly been pushed by the consumer electronics part of the industry. They want to sell a lot more televisions. There's a lot of licensing and other issues. There's a lot of money involved there, so there's a lot of push there to get it through and get the industry starting to adopt high dynamic range equipment. But realistically, where have we gone to see the best pictures in the past? Well, it's the cinema, and I am standing in my own theatre. This is for a company I have called the Finishing Room. Plug for myself, for example, this room is for small indies who want to do all their posts themselves, but at the very end you really want to do the post on a projected screen because it's got an emotional impact and you really want that to carry through, and the P3 colour space on the projected screen, seeing into those darks and being able to bring the picture out to the greatest dynamic range and colour volume, you can only really do it in a room like this. So at the end they come in here, spend a couple of days to make sure they've got all that correct, and I then help them out to do the DCP master, which is all ratified and correct for world distribution. But anyway, that's that part of my business. If you're interested in Melbourne, Australia, give me a call at finishingroom.com.au. But in this demonstration, I want to show you, why high dynamic range and some of the aspects of high dynamic range in cinema and why they're going the direction they're going. So if we look at what's happening today, we've got Dolby Cinema and IMAX. We'll concentrate on Dolby Cinema because it seems to it's got their special patented technology, which does truly give amazing black levels. So black levels are very important in high dynamic range because in cinema we're talking about a screen which is reflecting the light. So any light in the room has an effect on the screen. This greatly limits how bright we can turn the screen, because the brighter we turn the screen, the more light gets into the room. And when there's more light in the room, there's more potential for the light to bounce back onto the screen and basically washes out the black levels, which really kills our contrast ratio, which then reduces the effect of high dynamic range. So it's a bit of a problem there, and that's why you'll see that the actual level of light you see in high dynamic range cinema is only really around 100 nits. This is 100 nits behind me right now. Now, 100 nits, we actually currently project at 48 nits, so it's just over half of what we see today. It doesn't sound like a lot when you consider in the consumer electronics, we're going to likely see TVs in the next 6 to 12 months with a maximum peak brightness of 1000 nits. TVs today can project have a typical brightness of 300 nits. So obviously this is to get the specular highlights, etc. But realistically, even though the consumer electronics televisions can actually probably reach higher brightnesses, the actual effect in the darks and other aspects, because it's unlikely to get as controlled an environment as you do in a cinema for consumer electronics presentations, you're still going to get the best presentation in the cinema, even though the light level is limited. But why is it so limited? So let's go into that now. So because it's a reflective screen, and we're talking about light bouncing off surfaces, etc. The problem with that is that in a cinema, there's a lot of people with big white faces, like you see here. At the moment, my face is very bright because it's very white and it's reflecting a lot of light back to the camera, and you can see me very easily. Now, that's what happens in the cinema too. When you raise the light level on the screen, it puts more light into the cinema, and that more light's got more potential to bounce back onto the screen. And this is what happened. I've got a white piece of cardboard here that represents all the faces which may be bouncing the light back onto the screen. And I'm going to focus on this particular area here of this image, this area here. So I'm going to basically put this board in a position to maximize the amount of bounce light back onto the screen, and then have a look at what actually happens to this part of the image. So you'll see here that as I've got the board raised there and I lower it, you can actually see it's just drifting in and out as it brightens up and darkens out again. And so that's the problem with high dynamic range in cinema, and that's the crux demonstration of why it's a problem and we can't reach those nit levels that high dynamic range is promised in the consumer electronics. But yeah, so that's a bit of an issue that not a lot of people talk about in cinema. And in terms of cinema and high dynamic range is a bit of a story which isn't spoke about much in the standards community as yet, because they're focusing on the other things first. But I just wanted to show you that today and why we're at those sort of light levels and the sort of limitations that we do have in cinema. But still, you know, cinema still will be the best place to see movies because of the actual complete, you know, the environment is very much catered to produce the best picture possible. If you have a look at the IMAX and Dolby Cinema installations, you will see that they've replaced all the materials, all the seats. They all are basically black now. That's one of the reasons why these new high dynamic range installations are very custom. You really have to build them from the ground up, because you have to replace pretty much everything in the cinema: the chairs, the walls, the screen, the projector. You know, if you're going for immersive sound, then you have to do all your immersive sound. So it's a big jump in presentation, and I really encourage you to, if you have a chance, see high dynamic range or Dolby Cinema or IMAX, these new super high-end project content. Even so much that, you know, last year at CinemaCon, a few people did remark on how, you know, this does eclipse film. You know, oh my God, film, always thought to be the supreme. But yes, I think we are definitely getting to an era where digital is actually passing film as a best quality picture you can see. Anyway, that's James Gardner, the CineTechGeek. Bye for now.